This is fascinating stuff, and I know that the History Channel has done a lot of work on this recently, following the trail of Hitler after World War II. But there's more to it than just a guy wanting to live out a longer life. There's a real spiritual aspect to all of this, and that is with Hitler just arriving via U-boat in South America into Peru. And what happened
first of all,
there?
he landed in Argentina, went to Brazil, and lived out the last of his years in Peru, in one of the most amazing underground complexes that exists. We went down there, by the way. As you know, we started in Peru with the True Legend series.
Right.
And because of the history, even the occultists trace back to Peru and the underground citadels of the giants, their origins. A fascinating subject. But the thing that the History Channel did was they followed him all the way to Argentina and then to Brazil. But what is unknown to most people is that, getting back to Dr. Mengele, I think that's one of the last points I was making, not only did Mengele succeed in twinning, but he was advanced in cloning. Again, people can't understand that cloning, obviously, as we grow, our cells divide, and obviously Sharon can tell everybody how it works, But Sharon Gilbert, the bottom line is that these guys were given the occult understanding of how to accelerate cellular division. How to supercharge the mitochondria, which we're reading about right now, okay? But remember, right now is, the last I heard, it was, 2016 right now?
Yeah.
Okay, but we're talking 1948, okay? So when you talk to Gary Haven talking about nothing new under the sun, well, people better get used to hearing a new version of that, and there's nothing new under the earth.
Yeah.
Because, again, when Jesus said that we're going to live in a time when men's hearts were failing them for looking after those things coming up on the earth, and getting back to the stargates, this is critical. The Nazis concentrated a voluminous amount of money and technology into activating the gates. Then they spent horrific amounts of money, even by today's standard, in sending out the Anunnaki, okay? It's kind of like the Raiders of the Lost Ark, and what's the one with the crystal skulls, And do you notice something about the themes of those movies, Hollywood? What is it? It's aliens, okay? And it's the supernatural.
Right.
And so what we're dealing with now is there can be no understanding of the Third Reich. I always love to get the bottom line and work backwards. There can be no understanding of the Third Reich or the Final Reich without the true application of who the Nazis, who their high command were getting their orders from. It is a total, not partial, not, they were just dabbling with a bunch of Ouija boards, drinking beer in Munich, okay? They weren't, that's not what we're talking about. We were talking about searching the earth for every form of occult. I'm talking again about the Anunnaki, every type of an occult object. They were after the spear of Longinus, the spear of Longinus, the spear of destiny, the spear that they put into Jesus' side.
Right.
Roman soldiers. They were after the chalice or the Holy Grail.
They brought back the temple, the altar of the temple of Zeus from Pergamum, which was the seat of Satan in the book of Revelation. Brought that back to Berlin.
Yeah, they brought it back to Berlin. And as you know, the temple of Zeus was basically just another name for Lucifer.
Right.
And so it's really weird that you would bring that up, because even now, as we're on the air getting ready to, put this out, we've got the president of Turkey, Erdogan, wanting to establish the caliphate. And the thing is, every single church in the book of Revelation was in Turkey.
Right.
Or what we would call Asia Minor.
Yeah, the land of Magog.
Yep.
So the implications for us in the 21st century here, I mean, the fact that the Nazis didn't really go away, they just sort of went underground. Well, not sort of, they actually literally went underground. How is this manifesting today?
It's like what I would call, how should I say this, the tapestry of perdition. If you remember, before even the Temple of Baal, I call them Baals, people always want to correct me, we'll just call it the Temple of Lucifer, okay? Before that was even an issue, I think it was 2,200 days ago that the United States brought in these giant statues of Anubis. And Anubis is the Egyptian god of the dead. And the thing is that he was brought in, I think, 3 places. Well, first was New York, one was Kansas, or, mid-center, and the other one was Denver. And now it's fascinating that the very first place, and Tom and I did, I remember we got on the radio, and we did a whole thing on that, And it's kind of like when you see Muslims praying on prayer rugs and, all of them lined up. They're claiming the land for Allah. And
it's the same situation. We've got, I remember 10 years ago back in mid-Missouri there, I was working in the same town as the University of Missouri, and they had some Buddhist priests, monks come in there, and they performed their little ceremony and created their beautiful sand mandala on the ground there, and then they swept it all up and poured it into the Missouri River. That's essentially the same thing. They are claiming the land, summoning their deities, and then by pouring them into the waters, then sprinkling it out throughout the rest of the country.
I have not seen it yet. Forgive me. I've seen the transcript where even in the infamous Clinton email scandal, Hillary Clinton, where there's a direct relation made to sacrifices to Moloch. Now, I want to share something. The United Nations was built on one of the bloodiest probably you know the story about the land that was given by the Rockefellers to the United Nations, but that used to be the biggest slaughterhouse pretty much in the world, where they, would slaughter animals. The interesting thing about New York is, per abortion, New York leads the world in abortions.
Yeah.
And one of the questions I've always had before the Lord, and I can't quantify it, but it breaks my heart, is, Lord, if Abel's righteous blood cried out, what about the sewers of New York? What about the water systems? You know where I'm going with this.
Yeah.
So I find it interesting that the Temple of Baal, Temple of Lucifer, is going into the very area of New York City. And if you draw a circle, I haven't done this yet. This is just my working hypothesis. I can pretty well tell you where the next temples will be erected. In other words, when they dedicate, this is a Philistine type deal, okay? When they dedicate a ground through human sacrifice, and Moloch, by the way, it looks like Anubis, okay? And some drawings, he looks more like a bull with a body.
Right.
So they can argue over it, but either way, children were burned alive or butchered alive. So as I see this taking place, I'm going back again. What the Nazis were capable of isn't even public knowledge yet. But what they have made their great-grandchildren capable of is astronomical. A lot of the Nazi gold trains and all the myth and legends and stuff, there's a lot of stuff to that. But the advanced technology, and just let me say this, most people think that, I tell them this, they think that most business decisions affecting the world take place on Wall Street, or on the City of London, who, by the way, the City of London's two patron, not saints, but patron giants are Gog and Magog.
Right.
And the City of London, in the world that of the financial guys I hang out with, they claim that those are the movers and shakers. But every year they have a festivity where they bring out the two giants, Gog and Magog. Well, that can kind of maybe twist some people's theology on Ezekiel 38, okay?
Yeah.
And so the fascinating thing to me about this is that, again, it's not the City of London, it's not New York, it's a civilization in Antarctica. Now I know people are going to think he's lost his, the remainder of his hair. But the bottom line is that no, they're calling the shots. They're calling the shots. And in my book Long Walkers, which is the first attempt I made at fiction with Duncan Long, who can write fiction, talking about all this, the underground citadel in the Antarctic. I had another guy contact me. He says, hey, I've been blah, 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 and I won't tell everybody what the blah, blah, blah is, but he really lived in that world. He said, man, if you saw how big, he said, you're not talking about like an underground base, okay? You're talking about an underground civilization where you can fly aircraft, within the confines of their atmosphere, and they're using the black star, the black sun, as the power source, okay?